On June 6, 2003, in the city of San Jose, California, a girl of just 9 years old was living one of the worst nightmares anyone could imagine. Jeanette Tamayo was returning from school like any other normal day when she noticed something strange. The screen door of her house was ajar. Upon entering, she discovered her bedroom window broken and the telephone line cut. Before she could understand what was happening, an unknown man knocked at her door. In a matter of seconds, he invaded her home, attacked her, and began a kidnapping that would last 3 days of terror. But what no one expected was that this 9-year-old girl, inspired by criminal investigation programs she watched with her brother, like CSI and Law Order, would use extraordinary intelligence to not only survive her kidnapper, but also collect crucial evidence that would lead to the criminal's capture. In the midst of absolute terror, Jeanette managed to maintain a calmness and mental clarity that many adults wouldn't have in similar situations. Her capacity for meticulous observation and detailed memory would be fundamental in transforming her terrible experience into a unique case of determination, courage, and justice. The story you're about to learn is an impressive testimony of how knowledge acquired from television programs transformed into real survival strategies in the hands of an exceptionally astute child. If you're not yet subscribed to the channel, click the subscribe button and activate the notification bell. This way, you won't miss any of our real cases. Now, let's return to the story. Jeanette Tamayo was an ordinary girl who lived with her mother, Rosalia Tamayo, and her 15-year-old brother, Pablo, in a house in the Southwind Drive neighborhood of San Jose, California. The Tamayo family had moved to that residence just a few months before and were still adapting to the new environment. Of Latin origin, they faced a language barrier as they didn't speak English very well, which made them even more vulnerable in the new neighborhood, despite the area having a reputation for being calm and safe. Jeanette attended 4th grade at Blossom Valley School and, like many children her age, loved watching television programs with her older brother. Particularly, the two shared a fascination with criminal investigation series like CSI and Law Order, without imagining that this seemingly trivial interest would become vital to the girl's survival. On that Friday in June, she was returning from school as usual. The day was sunny and warm, typical of the Californian summer. Around 3:10 in the afternoon, she arrived home alone after getting off the school bus, carrying her backpack and thinking only about relaxing after a long day of classes. Upon noticing the open door, Jeanette initially thought that her mother might have returned early from work. But upon entering, she realized something was wrong. Her bedroom window was broken, with glass shards scattered across the floor. Frightened, she tried to call her mother but discovered that the telephone line had been cut. It was then that she heard knocking at the door. An unknown man was standing outside, asking questions and trying to peek inside the house. Sensing that something wasn't right, Jeanette tried to close the door, but the man was faster. He put his hand in to prevent her from closing it, invaded the house, and dragged her to her brother's bedroom. The man threw Jeanette on the bed, removed her clothes, and sexually assaulted her. Then he tied her legs and handcuffed her. Around 4:30 in the afternoon, he carried her to the garage where his car was parked. When he began to open the garage door, he didn't open it completely, just enough to check if there was anyone nearby. It was at this moment that Jeanette noticed her mother's car stopping in front of the house. Soon after, her brother Pablo began to enter the garage, having to crawl to pass through the small space of the partially open door. Jeanette screamed for him to be careful, but it was too late. The kidnapper quickly got out of the car and attacked Pablo, who tried to defend himself using a screwdriver. The man managed to take the tool from Pablo and began to hit him repeatedly. He then dragged the teenager into the house. When they reached the kitchen, the criminal encountered Rosalia, Jeanette's mother. She tried to protect her son, but the kidnapper grabbed a frying pan and violently struck Rosalia in the face. After the brutal assault against the family, the man ran back to the car where Jeanette remained handcuffed and tied up. He fled at high speed with the girl in the back seat. As they drove away, Jeanette managed to look back and saw her mother and brother, both bleeding, desperately running after the car in the street, screaming for help. During the escape, Jeanette tried to scream and get the attention of other drivers, hitting her shoulder against the car window. In response, the kidnapper struck her twice with the same screwdriver he had used to attack her brother. Fearing for her life, she lay down on the seat and remained silent. At 4:37 in the afternoon, the San Jose police received the call about the kidnapping. Quickly, officers were sent to the scene and found Karen Kempford, a neighbor of the Tamayo family. Karen informed them that her security camera had captured part of the events. The recordings revealed that approximately half an hour before Jeanette arrived home, the criminal had broken her bedroom window, entered the house, and then left. The camera also recorded when he knocked on the door after Jeanette's arrival and the moment when Pablo and Rosalia were attacked. Detective Heather Randall was assigned to the case. When she arrived at the scene, she found a chaotic scene: neighbors gathered outside, police searching the property, and paramedics trying to attend to the victims. Rosalia was in critical condition, with serious injuries to her face and head, profusely bleeding. Despite the searing pain and dizziness caused by blood loss, she vehemently refused to go to the hospital before providing all possible information that could help find her daughter. Maternal instinct spoke louder than any physical suffering. My daughter," she repeated in Spanish, between tears of despair. The mother was so determined to help with the search that the paramedics, concerned about her health condition, literally had to tie her to the stretcher to take her to the hospital. Even as she was being placed in the ambulance, she continued, giving information, describing the aggressor and begging them to find her daughter. At the hospital, Rosalia would receive 36 stitches on her face, which was practically disfigured by the blows with the frying pan. Her injuries were so severe that doctors feared permanent sequelae. Even so, her only concern continued to be her daughter's whereabouts. Meanwhile, Pablo, also hospitalized, was able to provide a detailed description of the attacker, allowing the police to create a sketch. The kidnapper was described as a Latino man in his 20s, wearing a beanie and a light-colored t-shirt, with a mustache and possibly with scratches on his face caused by Rosalia during the fight. Because they didn't have detailed information about the vehicle, such as the license plate, the police couldn't issue a statewide Amber Alert. However, they publicized the case on television and spread flyers with Jeanette's photo throughout the city, hoping someone could provide information about her whereabouts. While the police and her family desperately searched for her, Jeanette was being held in a house just a few blocks away. The journey from her residence to the captivity hadn't been long, but it seemed like an infinite distance in the terrified mind of the girl. The house where she was kept had an appearance of abandonment, with sheets covering all the windows to prevent anyone from seeing inside, and tall grass growing disorderly in the garden. The environment was somber and frightening for a child, further increasing her terror. The kidnapper took her to a small room on the second floor, which contained only a simple bed, an old television, and an attached bathroom. The confined space and the impossibility of escape made the situation even more claustrophobic. The smell of mold and dust permeated the environment, and the silence was broken only by the kidnapper's footsteps when he climbed the stairs to reach the room. Jeanette reports that she could hear the creaking of each step as he approached, making her heart race with fear each time. The morning after the kidnapping, other members of Jeanette's family arrived at the crime scene and were invited by the police to speak on television. The kidnapper was watching the news along with Jeanette. The girl saw her cousin speaking directly to her through the television, asking her to be strong because they were looking for her everywhere. At that moment, Jeanette felt a renewal of hope and decided that she would try to escape or die trying. Realizing that, at just 9 years old, she wouldn't have the physical strength to fight against her captor, Jeanette decided to use her intelligence. She began to talk with the man, trying to gain his trust. The first time she spoke to him, she asked where he was from. Although the kidnapper seemed confused by the question, it was the first time he smiled at her. Jeanette says she felt disgust and wanted to attack him at that moment, but she knew she needed to continue with her plan. So she returned the smile and asked for a glass of water. When the kidnapper left to get the water, leaving her handcuffed, it was the first time she was alone in the room. It was then that she began to examine the handcuffs and discovered that she didn't need a key to open them. She just needed to press a small button. Temporarily free, Jeanette remembered the criminal investigation programs she watched with her brother. On Saturday nights, it was almost a ritual for the Tamayo siblings to gather in the living room to follow the latest episodes of CSI. Jeanette used to ask her brother questions about the investigation procedures, and Pablo, proud of his knowledge, would explain in detail how detectives collected fingerprints, DNA, and other evidence to incriminate suspects. One episode, in particular, had been etched in Jeanette's memory, a kidnapping victim who managed to leave clues for investigators to follow. It was as if that moment of entertainment had been a preparatory lesson for what she now faced. The TV scenes mixed with her terrible reality, but instead of paralyzing her with fear, they were providing a plan of action. Inspired by this, she decided to collect items that could serve as evidence in case she didn't survive. She quickly took the watch that the man had left on the nightstand. Then she ran to the other side of the room where he had left some toys for her to play with. Among them, she took a small clay turtle and finally passed by the bathroom and took her underwear. She remembered that, on CSI, the team often used the victim's underwear in cases of abuse, and she wanted him to be punished for what he had done to her. But soon, her investigation was interrupted upon hearing the heavy footsteps of her kidnapper climbing the stairs. She jumped back onto the bed, put the handcuffs back on, and when he entered through the door, she just looked at him. In her mind, she was hoping, "Please, don't touch me, because I have things with me that I'm afraid he'll find." On the third day of captivity, Jeanette continued her strategy of gaining the kidnapper's trust. When he asked if she was hungry, she answered, "Yes." To her surprise, he handed her a cell phone and asked her to call a pizzeria. During the call, the attendant asked for information such as the contact phone number and the delivery address. The kidnapper dictated this information to Jeanette, who carefully memorized it while repeating it aloud to the attendant. This was a crucial moment, as now she knew exactly where she was being held. When the pizza arrived, the kidnapper went down to get it. Upon returning to the room, he brought the pizza box with a different expression on his face. On top of the box was a flyer with Jeanette's photo and the words, "Missing." At that moment, he said to her, "I have to get rid of you, and it will be tonight." Taking advantage of a moment when she was alone, Jeanette emptied the pizza box and put inside it all the evidence she had gathered, hiding it under the bed. When the kidnapper returned, he tried to suffocate her with a pillow. She fought desperately, managing to turn her face to breathe while he pressed the pillow against her. Realizing that he couldn't kill her by suffocation, the man asked if she wanted to take a shower. In the bathroom, while dressing after the shower, Jeanette made sure that all the evidence she had collected was safely with her. Suddenly, they heard someone knocking on the house door. The kidnapper covered Jeanette's mouth to prevent her from screaming and waited in silence until the person left. Then he put the handcuffs on the girl again, took her to the car, and began to drive. This time the journey was longer, lasting more than 30 minutes. Jeanette was crying, believing that this would be her end. However, the car stopped at a bright and busy place in East Palo Alto, 48 kilometers from her home. The return journey was tense and full of uncertainties. Despite Jeanette having memorized the route, it was night, and the streets looked different. The police officers tried to remain calm as they followed the girl's instructions, who at each corner indicated right or left, They knew they completely depended on the memory of a traumatized child to find the criminal. The silence inside the patrol car was occasionally broken by Jeanette's childish voice, who was striving to recognize the landmarks she had mentally noted during her forced trips with the kidnapper. Detective Randall observed the concentration on the girl's face through the rearview mirror, impressed with her determination even after everything she had been through. When they finally approached a residential area with old houses, everyone's heart rate accelerated. The girl, even visibly trembling with nervousness in the back seat of the patrol car, suddenly stood up, pointed to a white house with an unkempt garden, and shouted with conviction, "It's there! It's that house." At that exact moment, the patrol car's radio crackled, and Detective Randall received confirmation from Little Caesar's Pizzeria that that was indeed the correct address associated with the phone number Jeanette had provided. The precision of the girl's memory was impressive and brought a feeling of relief mixed with urgency to the police team. With this confirmation, a tactical team and a K-9 unit were sent to invade the house. Based on the information provided by Jeanette about the configuration of the place, the SWAT team elaborated a plan and determined that the suspect was hiding in the attic. The man, identified as David Montiel Cruz, also known as Enrique Sosa Alvarez, tried to resist arrest and threatened the officers. In response, the police released search dogs that attacked him, causing injuries to his arms before he could be detained. Inside the house, Detective Randall found the pizza box with the additional evidence that Jeanette had hidden under the bed. In the garage, there was a car that matched the description provided by the witnesses. Jeanette was rushed to the hospital as she still had untreated injuries from the screwdriver blows. Rosalia and Pablo followed her and finally were able to reunite with her when her condition was stabilized. Despite her mother's severely injured face, Jeanette felt immense relief to see that her family was alive. Rosalia, emotional, said, "I'm very happy because my daughter came back alive. For me, this was all a new beginning. She was born for the second time for me." David Montiel Cruz was charged with 9 crimes, including kidnapping, sexual assault, and assault with a deadly weapon. In September 2004, he was found guilty of 10 crimes. His defense attorney tried to plead insanity, arguing that he had a mental delay that made him unable to distinguish between right and wrong, but the jury rejected this argument. In January 2005, Cruz was sentenced to 102 years in prison, ensuring that he could never make another victim. The following years were not easy for Jeanette. The deep trauma left invisible scars much more painful than the physical injuries that eventually healed. For a long time, she dealt with her suffering in silence, developing severe symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. Recurring nightmares interrupted her nights, while terrifying flashbacks invaded her days without warning. Jeanette refused to leave the house, becoming practically reclusive. Closed windows and locked doors became obsessions. The fear of unknown men was so intense that she could barely interact with male teachers or friends. Normal teenage activities like shopping mall trips, going to the movies, or birthday parties became almost insurmountable challenges. Her family did everything possible to help her, and Rosalia, even dealing with her own physical and emotional sequelae, never stopped seeking the best treatment for her daughter. Therapists specialized in childhood trauma worked weekly with Jeanette, using different approaches to help her process the traumatic experience. The healing process was slow and full of setbacks. There were days when it seemed impossible to overcome. The painful memories when fear seemed to have become a permanent part of her personality. But gradually, anxiety management techniques, cognitive behavioral therapy, and the constant support of her family began to make a difference. After 6 years of intensive therapy, when she turned 15, something fundamental changed in Jeanette. During a particularly intense session, she had an epiphany by continuing to live in fear. She was allowing her kidnapper to continue controlling her life, even though he was in prison. At that moment, she made a transformative decision she would no longer allow fear to dictate her choices and limit her future. Inspired by Detective Heather Randall, whose determination and compassion had left a deep mark on her life, Jeanette decided to transform her traumatic experience into something positive. She began to study criminology still in high school, researching different aspects of law enforcement and criminal justice. What was once just an interest in TV shows was now transforming into a genuine vocation. During her studies, Jeanette discovered that her unique experience gave her a special perspective on how victims feel and what they need during an investigation. She understood, like few others, the importance of empathy combined with professionalism in treating survivors of violent crimes. After completing high school with excellent grades, she entered the police academy, facing each obstacle with the same determination she had demonstrated during her kidnapping. The physical training was challenging, and some crisis situation. Simulations triggered painful memories, but she persisted, using her own experiences as a source of strength. Upon graduating from the academy, Jeanette officially became a police officer, with the clear objective of one day becoming a detective specializing in crimes against children, just like the woman who helped her find justice. She wanted to be much more than a law enforcement agent. She wanted to be a voice for missing people and victims of violence, especially for those who, like she once did, felt they had no hope. Her personal story was now becoming her greatest tool to connect with victims and help them find the path to recovery. Currently, Jeanette Tamayo is a police officer and continues to inspire other people with her story of overcoming. Her work goes beyond the regular duties of a police officer. She frequently participates in lectures at schools and communities, talking about child safety and the importance of trusting danger instincts. Her presentations have helped countless children understand how to protect themselves in potentially dangerous situations, and her living testimony of resilience brings hope to other victims of violent crimes. Jeanette also collaborates with non-profit organizations dedicated to finding missing children and supporting families affected by kidnappings. Her unique knowledge, combining the perspective of a survivor with professional training, makes her a powerful voice in advocating for improvements in public safety policies aimed at protecting minors. As for Detective Heather Randall, her career also flourished over the years following the case. Her exemplary conduct of the investigation that led to Jeanette's recovery and the criminal's capture solidified her reputation in the department. After years of dedication and tireless work, she broke significant barriers by becoming the first female chief of the San Jose Police Department, a position she uses to implement better response protocols in cases of missing children. The relationship between Jeanette and Heather evolved from detective and victim to a deep friendship based on mutual respect and a shared commitment to justice. The two women, each in her own way, continue to work to make communities safer and to ensure that other children have greater protection against predators. As Jeanette herself says, everyone has a story, and it doesn't matter what life throws at us, what obstacles, we are all fighters, and we all have the ability to continue. I transformed my fear into courage. I regained my family. The story of Jeanette Tamayo is an extraordinary testimony to human resilience and the incredible capacity of a 9-year-old girl who, inspired by crime shows on television, not only survived a brutal kidnapping, but also actively helped capture her aggressor. If you like this video, don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Share in the comments what impressed you most about this incredible story of overcoming. Your interactions are very important for the growth of the channel. See you in the next case.